I'm joined today by Vice Admiral Rinaldo Veri, the Commander of Maritime Forces for Operation Unified Protector, who will fully brief you on the military aspects this weekend from Naples. In the past few days, as you know, NATO airstrikes have targeted Gaddafi forces across the country, intent on launching attacks against civilians and civilian centers. Our strikes have destroyed targets, especially near Zintan and Yafran, where 17 ammunition stores were destroyed, along with armored personnel carriers and other armored vehicles. In Tripoli, aircraft struck command and control buildings responsible for directing attacks against civilians. You have all seen reports by Libyan television of the death of Saif al-Arab Gaddafi. We cannot independently confirm those reports. Obviously, we regret any loss of innocent life in this conflict. NATO is not targeting specific individuals, but genuine military targets, with care and precision, and we will continue to do so. We've warned all civilians to stay away from military sites and equipment, and I would like to repeat that advice today. This is a complex campaign, operating across the whole of Libya, dedicated to steadily degrading the ability of the Gaddafi regime to attack its own people. The actions of NATO forces have saved lives and continue to do so. There's no doubt that were it not for NATO's precision bombing of tanks, rocket launchers and ammunition depots, the pro-Gaddafi forces would have killed and wounded thousands more. NATO operations are part of the international effort to end attacks on civilians in Libya. This week we'll see important work to reach that goal, take it forward within the international community. We have condemned Gaddafi's aggressive statement threatening Italy after the nation intensified its contribution to our mission to protect civilians. We also strongly condemn the attacks against the United Nations office and the missions of several NATO allies in Tripoli. The regime has a clear duty to protect all diplomatic missions, and allowing these attacks to take place is yet another breach of Gaddafi's international obligations. NATO's always been clear that there must be a political solution in Libya, and the NATO Secretary General will pursue this urgent international work at the meeting of the contact group in Rome this Thursday. He will brief the contact group on military operations so far. The meeting will progress on the goals decided at the Berlin Ministerial that set out the end state for this conflict. That all attacks and threats of attack against civilians and civilian centers must end, the regime must withdraw all forces to bases, and full humanitarian access must be guaranteed to all people of Libya in need of assistance. NATO will maintain the military pressure for as long as it takes until those goals have been achieved, and the Libyan people have the freedom to determine their own future. And with that, I hand over to Vice Admiral Veri, who is the Commander of Maritime Forces for Operation Unified Protector. Vice Admiral.
Yes, good afternoon. I am responsible for all the aspects of Unified Protector in the maritime environment. My goal today is to provide you with a situation update for NATO operations in Libya, and also to answer questions more specifically related to the maritime operations that I command. First, some operational background. NATO warships and aircraft have been patrolling the maritime approaches to Libya since the 23rd of March. Their mission is to reduce the flow of arms and related material, as well as mercenaries to and from Libya. Their actions are in line with the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1973. This is part of NATO's contribution to the broad international effort to protect civilians in Libya from the violence committed by the Gaddafi regime armed forces. A total of 12 nations have contributed assets to the maritime embargo, and up to 17 warships and 2 submarines have operated under NATO command at any one time. Those ships have been busy with two activities. The first is to enforce the embargo, and the second is to take action to ensure NATO helps protect innocent civilians from the threat of attack. And while our simple presence is a powerful deterrent, there are cases where we must still take action. Each case is considered separately. NATO sends out specific notice to mariners explaining to merchant shipping how they should behave to pass through the various layers of the embargo. If a ship chooses not to comply or act suspiciously, or if there is reason to believe it is carrying cargo that might be used in the ongoing violence against innocent civilians, it will be hailed and boarded. So far, the Maritime Component has conducted more than 750 hailings of ships in the embargo area, and we have boarded 26. In most cases, we have determined that all is in order, and the vessels have been allowed to proceed. But we have turned away 5 ships so far. Overall, I strongly believe the maritime embargo has contributed significantly to help reduce the violence against the civilian population of Libya. But I want to mention a recent and very despicable act by Gaddafi forces. Last Friday, maritime forces under my command detected some fast-moving small craft heading towards the approaches of Misrata harbor. Whilst in the pursuit of these vessels, a mine-like object was observed in the water, which had clearly come from one of these small crafts. Investigations by my maritime forces on the scene later confirmed the presence of 3 mines. They were small moored mines designed to detonate on contact with a ship. Unfortunately, one of the mines had become detached from its moorings and was drifting like a floating mine. It is clear to me that our forces had disrupted an attempt by pro-Gaddafi forces to lay mines in the approaches to Misrata, thus directly attempting to halt the flow of humanitarian aid to the innocent people in Libya. The 2 moored mines were destroyed Saturday, and maritime forces are now actively engaged in countering the mine threat to the port of Misrata. NATO mine countermeasure vessels are establishing a clear corridor into the port. My clear aim is to ensure that humanitarian aid can move safely to port. I urge shipping companies wishing to approach Libya to continue to liaise with the NATO Naval Cooperation and Guidance for Shipping Center at my command in Nizhda. Meanwhile, NATO air assets have continued precision strikes against Gaddafi regime military installations, including command and control nodes, lines of communication, ammunition storages, and various armored vehicles. We have also attacked missile launchers and transport vehicles. All these targets have been directly linked to attacks or threats of attacks against civilian and populated areas. Since the beginning of the NATO operation, there have been over 4,800 sorties, which include over 1,900 strike sorties. By means of our airstrikes, we have damaged or destroyed many targets, including command and control centers, equipment, and a large number of ammunition storage facilities. And just last night we destroyed 3 self-propelled artillery pieces that were shelling Misrata. Just to be clear, we do not target individuals. All NATO targets are military in nature and have been clearly linked